Come with me scuba diving. That's going to be the topic of this episode of Chi Life. There's going to be some great, I think it's pretty great, underwater footage of some diving I've been doing in Bali, as well as some commentary from some of the things that came as insights to me from this activity, which is new for me. So for the last 5 days, as well as continuing to teach Qigong with the online courses that are currently running, some of you will have had some Q&As with me just in the last couple of days, and all the emails and admin and all the things that go along with that. I have also been scuba diving. So across 5 days, which is not all that long a period of time, I have completed my open water PADI course, and have now also almost completed my advanced PADI course as well. And it has been a lot of fun, a really enjoyable new experience for me, because it's not something I've done before. Many years ago, as a teenager, I did a couple of times have a bit of a go with some scuba gear just in a swimming pool, but I've never been out in the open water, and that was like a long time ago now. That should be no surprise to anyone. It's quite some years ago that I was a teenager. A long time ago that I even did that. And I've never had scuba gear out in open water. And there's some beautiful, beautiful locations here with coral and fish and shipwrecks and all sorts of really cool things to explore and see. So I'm going to play some footage of videos that I took while I was scuba diving behind this. And talk about some of the insights that I got from scuba diving. So I do have a bit of a background in studying physics and engineering at one point, in my ancient history quite some time ago. So I do have a fair understanding of how different things work. And so some of the principles I'm going to talk about were not exactly new to me. Like, I had some concept or understanding of them already, but no in-person direct experience with them really. And you get a different kind of understanding by experiencing things directly for yourself. Well, look, this is quite appropriate. I believe we've got some scuba divers. Let me check. Oh, yep. Some scuba divers just surfacing right here in the video. So that's cool. And look, where I am, I'm in Amed in Bali, and it's so cool. There's so many dive spots, and pretty much all of them, you just walk off the beach and you're straight at this amazing dive spot. So anyway, some of the interesting things that I got first-hand experience of, one small one was the way that water absorbs light. And so as you go down deeper, it gets darker. But not only that, water absorbs different frequencies of light at different rates. And so different colors become duller more rapidly underwater. So, up on the surface, everything is bright. You have the full range of colors we normally expect to see. Even if you go a little bit under the water, the color changes a little bit. And as you go deeper and deeper, the colors change more. And specifically, you lose the reds first, and then the oranges, and then the yellows, and then eventually the blues. So when you go right down deep, everything kind of looks blue, maybe with yellow. Some of the yellow still shows through brightly. And things that are really blue, like bright blue, they are still nice and bright, but everything else is kind of dull. But if you shine a torch on them, the torch beam looks red. Now on the surface, it would just look white, right? Because it's got the full mix. But down there, you're seeing so little other red that you see this source of light that's got red in it. It's kind of like you've got a red lightsaber. And as you shine it on the things down there, it's like, oh, things that look kind of a gray color or a gray blue, oh, they turn out they're red. So that was kind of cool, just like observing what happens with light. Another one, this is a really big one, is the effect of the depth on pressure and how that affects the expansion of your lungs. And so basically, every 10 meters you go down under the surface is another atmosphere of pressure. So at 10 meters below the surface, it's double the pressure. That means air takes up half the space. At 20 meters below the surface, that's another atmosphere. That means air takes up 1/3 of the space. 30 meters, another atmosphere, 4 atmospheres of pressure. That means that your lungs take up 1/4 of the space. And so they're just getting like smaller and smaller and smaller. And so, of course, you don't actually want your lungs to get crushed. And so you're breathing compressed air all the time. And so what happens is as you go deeper, you're breathing air and it comes in at a higher pressure. And that keeps your lungs inflated. Related to this is managing your buoyancy under the water. You can take a deeper breath will make you float up more, and breathing out more will make you sink more. And this is quite noticeable if you take deep breaths, that you start to float more if you breathe in deeper, and you start to sink more if you breathe out more. To help balance for this, you also wear something called a BCD, a buoyancy control device, where you inflate. It's like a vest that you wear, and you inflate it more as you go down to help keep your buoyancy neutral so it's easier for you. But you also control it and fine-tune it with the movement of your breath. And one of the things that struck me about this experience of using the breath to control the buoyancy. So what happens if you take that deeper breath in, you start to rise. As you rise, the pressure also decreases. And this is noticeable, even rising like 1/2 meter or a meter, it's noticeable. And so you become even more buoyant. And if you continue on that path, you become even more buoyant and even more buoyant. So once you start going upwards, you keep on going upwards unless you do something to counter that and bring yourself down. And so this is very important when you're rising to the surface, because you've got this BCD, this buoyancy control device that is inflated with air. And so as you start to rise, that air expands, and so you start to rise faster and faster unless you release the air. And so as you come up, you release more air, so that you don't start to accelerate upwards too quickly, because that can be harmful to your health. I won't get into why, but it's not good to surface too quickly. Something similar happens as you go down deeper. Now, this is whether you take a deep breath, you exhale more fully, you'll start to sink. But also if you just kick down and you start to descend more, well, what happens, the air in your buoyancy device gets compressed. So that means you're not as buoyant, you start to sink more. Your lungs get compressed. They take up less space, you're less buoyant, and so you actually start to sink faster. Now, you again control for this by adding more air into your buoyancy control device, so it inflates more to balance for the compression, and by making sure you continually breathe. So you both continually breathe while you're going down and while you're going up, so that your lungs don't get crushed and they also don't expand too rapidly as you're going up and pop, I suppose, or become injured by overexpansion. So really, that's some of the technical details, but I thought it was really interesting the way that there is a compounding effect. Basically, once you head in one direction, unless you take action to counter that, if you start to head upwards, your buoyancy will increase and increase and increase as you go upwards. Similarly, as you go down, if you don't do something to counter that, your buoyancy will decrease and decrease and decrease. And so once you head off in that direction, you'll either keep going and faster upwards or keep going and faster downwards. And I thought there was that's an interest. This is specifically something to do with breathing and buoyancy underwater. I thought, this probably carries across into other aspects of life as well. When we take some kind of positive action in our lives, that starts to use a little bit of a cliche, starts to raise our vibration, raise our energy, starts to have a positive effect on our energy. That will have flow-on effects. Other things will start to affect our energy more positively as well, and that will likely lift us higher and higher. Unless we let different habits and things kick in to slow us down and drag us back down again. Similarly, if we start to head downwards, we do some things that lower our vibe, decrease our energy, that will have compounding effects as well. Other things will likely add on to that and cause us to be dragged down more and more and more, unless we take action. Again, maybe some habits kick in, or we take conscious action to do some positive things that then brings us back upwards. Now, we don't necessarily want to rocket super high all at once as well, even just in terms of our mood and our energy. Sometimes people think more is better, no. that could be a bit harsh. going too high, and we don't want to sink down too deep too quickly either. It's natural for us to experience highs and lows in life. It's good. But we want to do this in a steady, balanced way, not too radical in either direction at any one time. And that's similar to, having control as we come up and come down too. But definitely something where if we want to, we can allow compounding effects to help us upwards or compounding effects to take us down. And so, yeah, I thought there was maybe something to that in terms of thinking about aspects of our lives and how taking even one small positive action can flow into more positive effects and more positive effects taking us up. And also when we take some kind of negative action in our lives, the importance of not letting that compound too much, of going like, okay, we've done something that maybe wasn't smart, maybe wasn't good for us, maybe brought us down a bit. It's okay, we can accept that, but do some things that also help to bring us back up so that we maintain a healthy equilibrium. We control our buoyancy. Within the diving course, one of the things that we do on the advanced course is, I can't remember exactly what they call it, but it's advanced buoyancy control, where you spend a whole session focusing very specifically on controlling your buoyancy. And not the most interesting session in many ways, because I'd already observed, all these things on other sessions previously, but practicing and fine-tuning that was really valuable. In the end, I was really glad that we did it before we did, it was a second wreck dive that I did, because having that finer control allowed me to navigate through some relatively small spaces and not be floating up or down and banging into things, and which made for a much more enjoyable and interesting dive. And I think when we're able to start to take more fine control of our own mood, our own emotions, and yes, sometimes bring them up, and yes, sometimes bring them down, but to have fine control of them, it does mean we're able to navigate more skillfully through our lives and enjoy them more fully, our lives more fully as well. And this can mean, coming up to highs, going down to lows, all that sort of thing, but it means doing it in a safe, smooth way where we don't harm ourselves. Controlling your buoyancy, controlling your emotions does not mean living a boring life. It means living a skillful life where we can have a full experience of life, but in a way where we do it in a safe, controlled way. Anyway, I think those are the main insights I wanted to talk about. There were some other ones. There was something to do with positive pressure in my sinuses that I mentioned in a previous vlog, and a few other ones as well. It's been a really interesting experience and I've really enjoyed it. Definitely something I will do more of at some point in the future. At the moment, I just have one more dive to go. It's a night dive, so I'm sure there'll be some interesting things to discover with that, diving underwater when it's dark. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the vlog. I look forward to seeing you on another one soon.